Today I have a very special pattern for you, and it's called the Weave Chironomid. Now it's a pattern that I designed that is a little more complicated, but I'm sure plenty of you out there will appreciate this pattern. Make sure you have these materials ready before you tie the fly. For the hook, we're going to use a Mustad C49S size 8. We'll use some UTC 70 black thread to tie with. We'll use some red and black monocord for the weave. For the wing case, we'll use some brown pheasant tail, some white ostrich herl for the gills, and for the thorax, some peacock herl. To start the fly off, we want a real good base layer of thread. So we're going to start wrapping in our black thread. And make sure you cover the whole hook because we don't want our weave coming apart. So cover the whole hook with our black thread. Now we're going to take a strand of our red monocord and tie it in on one side of the hook. And tie it right down to the bend in the hook. And we'll take a strand of our black monocord and do the same as we did with the red. We'll take it and tie it on the opposite side of the hook and tie it right down along the side down to the bend in the hook. Now we're going to bring our thread forward and finish off our thread and begin our weave. Now we're going to start the weave, and here's where it can get a little complicated, but it is a very easy weave to learn. We have our two threads, or two monocords coming off each side, and now the rule is you're going to start the weave and form a loop, and essentially a knot in the two lines. Bring one over the other, and whichever one is at the back of this weave to form the knot will go on top of the fly. So what we're going to do is when we bring this up, we're actually going to form another loop, putting our red thread on the top and our black thread on the bottom, and slowly pull it tight over the eyelet. And that's the first start of our weave. Now let's go through that once more. We have a red thread to the back, our black thread to the front. We're going to form a knot in the line. We're going to bring the loop up towards the eyelet, and then what I'm going to do is put my red thread in part of the loop on top of the hook and my black thread on the bottom of the hook, and then pull tight to the back of the hook. And that's going to continually build up a nice weave pattern. And whatever color you start with at the back, always keep to the back, and when you bring the knot up to the top, always keep it at the top part of the hook. So essentially right on the top here now I've got my red thread on top, my black thread on the bottom, and I'm going to pull it in tight. And we'll just continually work this weave pattern all the way up until we're about 2/3 towards the eyelet, and then we'll tie off. Once the weave is finished, we'll have our two lines sitting here. I'm just going to tie on my black thread again, and then what I'm going to do is bring the two monocords forward and tie off, and make sure you leave about a third of the hook available for our thorax and our gills and so on. I've now taken some pheasant tail, and we're going to tie this in by the butts pointing forward. Now this is important because we're going to tie this in first, and you'll see why in a minute. But make sure you tie it towards the eyelet and wrap it back in. And this will be used for the wing case a little later. Now take some white ostrich herl, and Superfly makes a special ostrich herl made specifically for chironomids. It's got really small fibers on it, so it's ideal to imitate the gills. And we're going to tie this in. And once we tie it in, I'm just going to take a few wraps right near the eye of the hook. Take about 3 wraps. Not too many, you don't want the gills really to be too full. And tie it off. Now take one strand of peacock herl, and we're going to tie it in for the thorax. Tie it in, and then just take about 5 or 6 wraps and form a thorax on the fly. The last step to the fly is to take our pheasant tail that we tied in earlier. We're going to extend it back, wrap it over the gills and the thorax, and tie it off to form the wing case of the fly. And now we'll do a quick whip finish to finish the fly off. And there it is, the finished Weave Chironomid. You know, this is a really good pattern, especially in deep waters. And how you change the color is just by changing the color of mono that you use to do the weave.